Welcome back. I'm Karen, founder and managing director of Orchid Leadership Coaching and Consultancy Limited, encouraging you to embrace the leader within, whether you're a CEO leading a company, an executive leading a team of innovators, an emerging entrepreneur, or a working or stay-at-home parent leading the family and home. Now's the time to embrace the future, empower the new you. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of Enlightened Leadership Coaching Snippets, a new season of podcasts linking to domains of leadership, where we will be exploring different terrains and jurisdictions where one potentially may lead, whilst reviewing some key starting points and strategies within that leadership journey. In this episode, we'll be deep diving into leading oneself, awakening your leadership story. If you missed our earlier episodes from our first 2 seasons, don't worry. They're available to download on numerous major podcast platforms, now including YouTube under Orchid Leadership. Do ensure to like and subscribe or follow so not to miss out on future upcoming episodes. Getting back to today's episode, focusing on leading oneself, awakening your leadership story. When contemplating upon leading oneself, it may cause a slight pause for thought. Leading those around us often may initially seem easier. We may naturally apply certain leadership models or styles to meet the demands of certain situations or groups. But when considering ourselves, what then? Many people may agree that if you can't effectively lead yourself, then you can't effectively lead other individuals, groups, or organizations. If you're incongruent to your priorities and can't effectively create and follow through on your own goals and priorities, then your whole environment may become viewed as confusing and scattered. If you are unclear and lack clarity, others will also share in that same confusion, and you will very quickly lose credibility. As a consequence, some may initially look at how we manage ourselves and how we view others, and therefore focus exclusively on emotional and social intelligence, which, though is a vital and necessary ingredient, it doesn't present us with the whole picture of how to initiate and then cultivate leadership within ourselves. In this episode, we will begin the journey into how to initiate that starting point of leadership within ourselves, what steps one can take, as well as areas to embrace within that internal leadership journey, whilst also discussing ways in which to empower our leadership story. Let's enjoy this journey together as we explore what is a reconnection with our authentic inner self, whilst awakening the leader within. So, let's dive a little deeper. It might be accurate to say that a secure starting point may be to set aside some quiet, reflective time to evaluate some of the necessary core competencies that we may already have within us or be aspiring towards. Establishing the existing building blocks, to what degree our foundation holds strength. These areas may include our ethics, our capacity to communicate, to engage, our ability to positively influence, our capacity to plan, to motivate, to innovate, and to make decisions. It's wise to take a little time here to authentically reflect upon these areas within all aspects of our lives, especially how these areas positively or negatively affect not just those around us, but also our inner growth and development. Only then can we begin the process of setting a direction. When setting a new course or direction in our lives or work spheres, this can of course take many shapes and forms. Today, we will narrow our focus to career and personal development. Think first in terms of career or big picture aspirations. An initial question is to begin with, who am I? The greater the congruency between who you are, your skills, values, interests and personality, and your career or aspiration choices, then the greater your satisfaction and sustainability as regard the journey towards that aspiration. A worthwhile exercise is to think in terms of where do you want to be 1, 3, 5, or even 10 years from now. For a more effective and authentic outcome, better to do a speed write on this one, giving yourself a maximum time of around 10 minutes to consistently write whatever comes into your mind, without too much pre-thought or deliberation. Thinking of where you want to be at the longest time frame of 10 years. Then work back as to what that looks like at 5 years, 3 years, and 1 year. In this sense, you are narrowing down to the skills, attributes, behaviours, and direct actions you'll need to build upon and take in order to successfully build and fulfill that aspiration, no matter how big it may be. After undertaking this very often breakthrough process, it's necessary to consolidate your inner findings into a SMART goal. This is short, simple, and to the point, that reflects your aspiration as specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Next, do you have an action plan to get there? What career or developmental options are there for you to reach that aspiration, to give you the satisfaction you have written about? How will you leverage your strengths and networks to advance this aspiration or career path? And how will you stand out from the crowd? You may insert some key questions that may help align the person who you are now to the person you see yourself becoming in the future. Such as, what do I see as my personal strengths and limitations? What are my core values? What's important to me? What are my abilities, things I'm good at and enjoy doing? What are my major achievements that make me feel proud, that I could turn into a newspaper headline about my life so far? Are there skills or attributes that as yet are not realized? Also, are there significant influences or obligations on my life? And if I could turn the clock ahead to 10 years, what are the major outcomes I'd like to accomplish? Part of this process may then include a focused, reflective process towards areas of professional and personal development to strategize how to reach your aspired goal or outcome. Whether that be areas of learning to build on strengths and fill any gaps, creating opportunities for necessary experiences, or being open to inner personal work regarding mental strength and capacity, as well as integration of mindfulness and wellness. Of course, we may do this quite successfully on paper, and then still not fully attain that aspiration, no matter how much we wish it, no matter our determination. Much of this links to our inner values. So do our values align with our aspirations? This sounds a simple question, but as you begin to break this down and reflect authentically on your top 3 values, for example, ask yourself, do those values align with what you want to achieve? Do they complement that which you aspire to? For example, if part of your goal is to be financially independent, is finance in your top 3 areas that you value? If not, what does that tell you? How will you attract something if you don't hold it high in your value system? Re-evaluating our inner values, establishing if they align with the direction and goals we have set, may lead many to question whether values are innate, attributed to influence, or if they can be learned, reprogrammed to align with that which we aspire towards and gain abundance in. While certainly we can reprogram even our values to support that which we want or need to gain as a desired outcome, this doesn't mean that we abandon what is essentially our core inner beliefs and values. It just means we review and reprioritize those of our values that will align to that which we are aiming for. All of these exercises and actions include complete personal accountability, where you are in complete control, holding all the touch points for action and all the means of how to get there. Supported by perhaps building necessary relationships and networks to align with your aspirations. Perhaps also aligning yourself with a mentor and coach to support your chosen path and to help you gain momentum in that journey. So, you've undertaken an inner journey, re-evaluated who you are in terms of who you want to see yourself becoming. You have a goal, you have a plan, and you have support. But how about effectively leading oneself through and beyond that journey? This becomes again a personal responsibility and accountability towards productivity, as well as wellness, where we may evaluate our level of wellness across a number of areas and then perhaps consider putting in place a wellness plan with its own goals and aspirations. In addition, we also center on self-leadership in being disciplined in areas such as learning and building our skills, physical and mental fitness, critical thinking, decision-making and problem-solving, setting personal goals, reflecting and prioritizing, time and stress management, self-coaching, emotional and social intelligence, self-motivation and work-life integration. This, of course, could be sufficient for most people embarking upon or who are part way into their aspirational pathway. But how do we really identify with the inner leadership journey? How do we recognize, embrace, and empower the leader who is within all of us? Perhaps the answer lies within shaping and retelling our leadership story, engaging with how we have led ourselves to this point, identifying the moments or milestones of transformation and shift from the person we were to who we are now or who we are becoming. This becomes your internal narrative of who you are at your core. To do this, we need to be objective, to observe who we are and what we do. Understanding our big why moments, our how-to moments, as well as our emotional triggers and our responses to them. Whether related contextually to a named leadership role, or within the context of leading our personal and professional lives, as well as within our families. Review the areas of narrative you wish to keep and build upon and reframe areas you want to adjust or reprogram in terms of behaviours or attitudes, so that you continually shape and reshape the person you are aspiring to become, with a view of that narrative becoming a constant within the way in which you lead, especially when leading yourself. Identify the structural elements that construct your story, the patterns within it. Review potential areas to reframe as alternate patterns to behaviour and alternate endings that you want to construct. In this sense, you are choosing to create and accept a new narrative that reflects the new you, which in order to manifest it, it will require you to engage with it, embrace it, believe it, and empower it by living it one day at a time. The leadership narrative or story we build about ourselves acts as a constant disruptor to challenge negative limiting beliefs, which we will thrust upon ourselves from time to time. When faced with what seems like a limitation, challenge the reality of it. Ask yourself, what story are you telling yourself about that situation? Then remind yourself of your true leadership narrative or story and return to the main plot line. Think of it in terms of you being a central character, the hero of your own story, who is in complete control and directs the path ahead. So when we now think in terms of leading ourselves, what are our thoughts? Any shift in mindset? What's your leadership story? I'd love to hear your comments and feelings on this subject. A challenge I lay before you. Take measure of your leadership story. Are you the hero within your own story? If you could transport yourself 10 years into the future, what aspirations do you immediately visualize? Feel free to get in contact if you'd like to gain additional clarity in any of the areas discussed in today's episode. And feel free to share some of your follow-up actions with me on any of my social media platforms, including my YouTube channel, Orchid Leadership. Or alternatively, share a comment with me right here on Podbean, where the podcast is hosted, after listening. I look forward to our next podcast session, which will continue this season linking to domains of leadership, where we will be deep diving into becoming your own boss, awakening the entrepreneur within. So make sure you tune in next time and engage with me after the session about your thoughts and personal takeaways. Until then, please remember, if this podcast episode added value to your day or evening, download it, share it with your colleagues and friends, and of course, ensure to follow or subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes. And remember, embrace the future, empower the new you, awaken the leader within, and let's take back control of our aspirations. Thanks for listening.